I am so excited right now. I have one of my stars, one of the people I look up to joining me today. I have Katherine Woodward Thomas in the house. Let's just say hello to her right now. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
I kind of feel like Oprah when when she interviewed Barbara Streisand. She was like, "Whoa," and that's how I feel about you because your work is spectacular. So for those of you that may not know Catherine's work, she is a New York Times best-selling author of Calling in the One, which is like a spectacular book. This is what it looks like. And it's just the most magical book and helping you figure out why you haven't found your one yet. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And she also authored Conscious Uncoupling. We're going to hone in on what's really going on, what might be getting in your way, what are some of the blocks, and how you can move toward that special one that you desire.
Mm.
Sound good, Katherine? Shall we dive in?
Of course, of course.
All right. I really am so thrilled to be with you. So, as I was reading your book, obviously you started with your story. And one of the things that was so compelling about your story, which is what I hear so often, is why isn't it working for me? And the pointing to, I just haven't found the person. And wanting to have that person, wanting to have that relationship, and finding yourself in patterns of behavior, which you shared, was calling in a lot of unavailable men. And you had that one moment that a friend of yours kind of said something to the effect of, what is it about you? I don't know if the exact words, about you wanting to be alone, or what is it about you that's creating this journey, so to speak? And I'm just curious, how was that for you in that moment of, whoa, I might be the common denominator here? What's that about?
Really a turning point, truthfully. It changed my focus from just trying to understand why I was having so much difficulty, which truthfully I ended up really blaming on my childhood wounds or my astrology. It felt like something was sitting on my stars, but definitely something that I felt victimized about,
Yeah.
powerless to change. It's one thing, some of the conversations we have where we're looking to the externals, they're valid. The internet dating culture is weird, or
Yeah.
maybe I'm living in a neighborhood where all there are gay men and they're not looking for a woman. So these things have some validity, but the common denominator of all of them is that I'm powerless to change anything.
Ah.
Kind of the booby prize to just understand why you're still single. When my friend asked me, this is what she really said that really turned me around. She said, she said, I'm happy to hold the intention that you're setting to be engaged by your 42nd birthday, Catherine, if you give me permission to hold you accountable for being who you would need to be for that to happen
Boom, right there.
right
Who
there.
you need to be, and what a great friend to say, how can I support you in this journey to what you're saying
Okay.
you wanted?
You give me permission to hold you accountable. That was so
Wow.
conscious of her.
Yeah.
Right. So at that moment, I just kind of took a big gulp
Yeah.
and I said, Thank goodness I said yes." And but it did change how I was thinking about it. And what I did do, and it did start with me setting an outrageous intention. I was part of this intention setting group. People were doing things like manifesting a home or a holiday or starting a new business. Nobody else was talking about love, but I really wanted to have a breakthrough in love. I was 41. I'd never been engaged. I think I was engaged for a minute when I was 19, and I was almost engaged to my high school boyfriend, but nothing since then as married men, alcoholic men, commitment
Yeah.
phobic men. It's just one drama after another, which is very hard on the heart. And by the time you're 41, it's just the despair because I always wanted to be a mother. So I felt very sad about that, and I felt very powerless to change it. Once I became willing to be accountable for how I was the creator of this
Yeah.
experience, that changed everything. So what I would do, Junie, is I would begin in the morning with a visioning. That's what we want to do with our intentions. We want to imagine, almost like you can collapse time and you use your imagination. And what you're basically doing is what does it feel like to already have the love that I desire? The Latin root of the word want is from lack. That's what it literally means.
Yep.
The Latin root of the word desire is to await what the stars will bring,
Woo! I never heard that before. Oh my God.
right?
Wow.
That's
Wow.
Come on, It's kind of like instead of a wow, 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 why don't I have this? It's
Yeah.
and I'd love this. And what does it feel like to be respected? What does it feel like to be
Yeah.
cherished? What does it feel like to be chosen by a man I choose? What does it feel like when somebody really shows up for you and goes to the wall for you and fights for you? And, so I never had that. I certainly didn't have it from my father, and I didn't even have it from my mother or my stepfather. And like many of us, had a lot of neglect and actually what I now call, rather than a blessing on my dreams, a curse on my dreams. Well, who's
Mm.
ever going to love you? Right? That kind of a conversation. Well, you're never going to be anything. And a lot of us had those stories. So that's like a curse on us, and we kind of live under the curse.
And we have a lot of proof too. It's like, well, look at look at all of my relationships. Look at all these experiences. See, I must be cursed. And people tend to then gravitate to, well, this is my problem and this
Yes.
is the
So let me
challenge.
tell you what I've discovered about that, because that is actually the linchpin. Because
Mm,
you think the beliefs like I'm alone, I'll never be loved by anybody, or I'm not safe to love,
yep.
or I'm not worthy to be loved and chosen by a person that I would want to be chosen by. So all of those beliefs were born in a relationship. They were created in relationship with a primary caregiver when you were young, or
Yeah.
a relationship you had with someone who mattered, your older sibling, or your parents, or even a teacher who mattered. So we have these kinds of self schemas, which is a psychotherapeutic word, but I think it really fits, like these ideas about who I am. When we're centered in that story emotionally, we will tend to show up in ways that almost bait others to play out that story and create more relational evidence,
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
all in the invisible. And we don't really see it. It's kind of like if you have an I'm not wanted, you might actually do kind of a preemptive strike against rejection, which makes other people feel like you don't like them and you're rejecting, so they don't feel safe with you and they leave. And you think that they've rejected you,
Yep. Yep.
all unspoken. So that's what I was looking at, or things like that. Like, how am I causing this? So, anyway, in the visioning, though, I want to give people this visioning practice.
Yes, please.
What you do is you imagine you have it already, and you put it on, you try it on in your body. What does it smell like? What does it sound like? You imagine him whispering something in your ear, or she's nibbling on your neck, or you put it in your body. What does it feel like to be hugged from behind, spooned in bed?
Mm.
And you just transport yourself there. And then you ask the universe these questions. First of all, you ask, well, who am I here? Because that's a different self. I'm loved. I'm
Yeah.
chosen. I'm safe in love. Right? So you really kind of deepen into that. And then you ask the universe three questions. One is, what will I need to give up in order to manifest this vision?
Yep.
And when you just sit with that question, your eyes closed, deep listening,
Mm.
hear it. You got to give up hope that your former partner is coming back. You got to give up smoking. You got to give up dating down.
Mm.
Good enough for the ones you really want.
Yeah.
you got to give up the binge eating late at night because it's creating a wall around you. And then the next question, what would I need to embrace or how will I need to grow? I need to learn how to deal with my emotions so that I don't have to drink every night. Or I need to speak my truth to people. I need to engage conflict. I need to learn how to take risks in life and not play it so safe. Come home and, with my kitty cat and watch the television every night. So, so there's a growing edge. And then you ask the universe this last question, what is my next step?
Mm.
And that might be something like call your sister and really tell her you forgive her and you love her, or um join that hiking club, or go take an art class, or go into some coaching, get a calling in the one coach, get somebody to hold this vision with you so that you're proactively generating that positive possible future.
Yeah.
So that's really the core of the journey that I was on. And basically this idea of how am I the source of my chronic attracting in unavailable people? I mean, the obvious one to ask is, well, how am I unavailable? Right? I mean, even though I want it desperately,
Mm-hmm.
me actually doesn't want it and
Yep.
is fighting against it.
Yeah.
That's the part of me that I really had huge breakthroughs in because I really saw, when my parents were young and crazy. So they had a very toxic, ugly divorce when I was quite young. And then I adored my father, but I really only saw him maybe once or twice a year because my mother wanted nothing to do with him. And she would do crazy things. Like once he drove 6 hours to see me and she slammed the door in his face.
Oh. Okay.
When they were teenagers. So they were basically very
Yes.
undeveloped behavior.
Yes. And that's what you witnessed as a child, that kind of
Yeah, I had
relationship.
no model for healthy love. That's
Yeah.
the thing, is if you're really going for healthy love, but you had crazy love in the in the background, you have to actually become a student.
Yes.
You read all the couples books. Like this is what you say, and this is how we do conflict, and this is what the goal is. Because you need a different picture of what
Exactly.
love looks like, right? We're
Yes.
really
Yes.
cultivating that vision. So anyway, I when I was 10, he finally just, gave the whole thing up. And because my mother was asking him to give up his parental rights, she had remarried and she wanted her new husband to be my legal father. So, and he did, which I think he regretted for many years after, but he did make the decision. He was young. People didn't know what they know now. So he thought that was a good thing for me. Oh, it's going to be better for her to have one cohesive family.
Mm.
Anyway, he did that, but it broke my heart.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you
Shattered.
don't understand as a kid what, he did it out of love, but you're having a very different experience of my dad is fill in the blank, leaving me, abandoning me, not there for me, whatever the story in that little girl's body.
So I realized that I had been creating drama as a substitute for love for all these years because I never wanted to be in that position of being left again.
Right. Right.
Right.
And that's such a smart thing to do on a protective level, but at the same time, the setup is you never got to, or in the beginning, really be able to call in that kind of love because there was that dynamic running in the background.
So
Oh my goodness.
I had to really name the resistance.
Yeah.
Then I needed to talk to my 10-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
I think we skip this part a lot. We
Oh yeah.
Oh, we hate my 10-year-old because my 10-year-old is love avoidant and she's preventing me from moving forward. We get angry
Right.
at the 10-year-old. We try and pretend she doesn't exist. We cut her off at the knees. I think we're all like tree trunks. You have the rings inside you. It's part of you.
Yes,
I like it.
they live inside of you, all these parts. Yeah.
So the trick is, though, we want our adult self to manifest love and not the wounded child.
Correct.
So we want to live from the truth of who we are as opposed to the trauma.
Yes.
So I was able to begin to dialogue with that 10-year-old part of me. And I said, honey, I am so sorry that happened to you.
Mm,
So sorry. And I will never leave you. And sweetheart, it's really not working to just create all this drama and trauma around love. And it's preventing true love from entering life. So I, as the loving adult in the room, cannot let you do that anymore. But
mm.
I have more resources. I have more wisdom. I can get help if I need it. It's just not working. And that was what really unleashed a lot. And there were other things. There were things like, and this ended up becoming the Calling in the One, which, by the way, the cover you held up was an old one. I've rewritten the book.
I've had it for a long time. Like I said, you've been in my world for a long time.
Thank you, thank you. So I basically did things also, like I noticed suddenly I got up from one day from the visioning exercise. I noticed that all the artwork on my walls were these forlorn looking single women nobly staring off into space.
Right? The environment was actually supporting that little girl's, this is how it's going to
Exactly.
be.
Exactly. And of course, I bonded with God the Father. It became very spiritual because God is a father.
Yeah.
I bonded so nobly looking off into space.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
So anyway, but I thought it was my fate to really be alone and only do good things and serve God in some, not an official nun-like way, but I really had held that energy of service. I did all sorts of work with the homeless. I mean, I really have a big heart for people. I love people.
mm.
Love, I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, so I love giving and all that
Ah, yes. I'm a 7. I love shooting for the stars, having people like you on my podcast. But
stuff.
twos, yeah, twos love to give and love to connect through giving and in service. That's how, what a wonderful vehicle of what your journey has been for that, how you are made up.
Listen,
Wow.
when we set that intention, those like unreasonable, like look, right, I've been trying to find the one for years. That
Yeah.
was an unreasonable intention to set.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and who knows what's going to happen? You can't manipulate God into giving you true love. We all know that.
No.
But you can become who you would need to be.
Yes, and that's the
Yeah.
piece I love that really stood out in your book is how are you being and how are you creating this? Because that's one of the things with the law of attraction that people still sometimes struggle with, which is I'm doing the vision boards, I'm doing all the work, I'm doing all the right things. What's
Yeah.
wrong with me? Or
Yeah.
projecting out what's wrong with them when the unconscious, the little girls that live inside of us are still kind of pulling the ropes going, yeah, don't do that, it's not safe, or just look over there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think the calling in the one process really teaches us how to get that little girl buckled up safely in the back seat of the car so that the
Yeah,
adult can drive the car and
exactly.
actually create what we long to have in our lives. So I was doing this every day faithfully,
Hmm.
holding myself accountable to being who I'd need to be. And interestingly enough, I started dating this one man who was very clear he didn't want any children. So I was not taking him seriously. But then he fell in love with me, and suddenly he wanted to marry me. And I mean, which is a big breakthrough because nobody had wanted to marry me for a very long time. So I saw that as evidence that I was moving in the right direction.
Yes.
But I didn't think he was the right person for me. He started saying, "Oh, yes, we'll have children." But I thought, no, he really doesn't want children. He's not the right person for me. He had a lot of debt. He was messy with money. He wasn't
Hmm.
the right guy. So I said, no, I'm holding out for my vision. And several weeks went by, and I got impatient at one point. I had two girlfriends helping me with this. This is before
Love
calling
that.
in the one, right? This is my calling in the one process. So I had
Yes.
two friends doing this. And I always tell people, do calling in the one with your girlfriends, create a group and support each
Love
other.
that.
Because
Yeah.
it's hard for us to hold the high watch, especially when you get disappointed. You thought that was going to be, the person, and then
And we
they,
need those mirrors sometimes, those really loving mirrors to go, hey honey, you're doing it again. What's going on
that's
here?
right. You're
Loving,
doing it
fierce
again. You're
love.
going after a married person or an unavailable person. He
Yeah.
lives 6,000 miles away from you. Exactly. So
Yeah.
what's happening? So I just basically really held myself accountable. I called one of my friends and I said, I'm getting frustrated. I've been doing this now for 2 months. He's nowhere to be seen. And she said, you need to get online. Now, this is back in 1999.
Okay. Wow.
Nobody was really online. It was very new internet dating.
And a lot of judgment about it back then too.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that was just one step up from the personal ads in the paper.
Yeah.
You remember those days?
You're going to be on those?
It was so
You must be desperate, right?
embarrassed. Exactly. I was so embarrassed. So I go on this site that she told me about, which doesn't even exist anymore. It was called Netscape. And I went on this site with 250,000 people. And I just started shuffling through with all my, non-smoker, wants kids, that kind of stuff. I lived in LA. 80 potential matches came up. Nobody has their picture. Because in that world, they didn't have the technology. I've since learned that Match, I think, had pictures by then, but this place didn't have pictures. No real names, just handles like two hearts beating is one. That was the person's name. So I'm reading through these profiles. I ended up responding just to one. And the next day, he wrote me back and the email came right into my own inbox, and his name was in parentheses, his real name from his
I'm
email.
getting goosebumps because I know the story. Yes.
And it was a man I had dated 6 years earlier.
Yep.
I thought of for years as the one that got away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And
And I want to jump in here and say, and in those 6 years, you kept thinking about him and didn't take an action
I
to
didn't.
even to that point where you saw him at the church or something and you looked
Yeah.
away. So you, for whatever reason, you weren't ready or you couldn't. And this is what I kind of took away from your story, which is you couldn't see him on some level as the one until you were ready to actually see him as
Yeah.
the one. Would you say that's
Well,
true for you?
I think that's really true. I mean, Mark was a different race than me, is a different race than me. And my mother was, and my parents were very conservative in that way. And frankly, they were pretty biased and horrible back then. They were pretty racist.
Yeah.
So, I had this sense that I would lose my family if I ever really partnered with him. But he really
Mhm.
captivated my heart. He's a wonderful man. So it
Yeah.
really did take a few years of my own maturing to be
Mhm.
ready to say yes and risk losing my family.
Wow, that's big. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were engaged really before my 42nd birthday and married the next year. And then I gave birth to our daughter when I was 43. So I ended up
Oh.
becoming mom too.
Mm.
So that's when I
Oh.
wrote Calling in the One. I was like, oh, wait a minute. What did I just do? I just opened
Right.
a portal. I better. And I'm a person who, if there's a good sale at Nordstrom's, I'm calling my friends, right? So I'm like,
Oh my goodness. You know, there's so much there and overall what I'm hearing, there's a few pieces. Obviously, there's a lot of pieces. Your dedication and your commitment shifted. Like I see so many women that come to me. I've done all the right things. I'm on these apps. I have the best profile. They're checking the boxes of doing dating well because
yeah,
they're so wanting that person. And
yeah,
yet they haven't necessarily, either they don't know or they have resistance to really looking at what are they bringing? How are they being? How are they aligned to call in and attract that very person? And when I read your book and reread it before we came on here, it was just so apparent that you really became the person. You were so committed and willing to look at your own shit, willing to go, there's something going on here and I'm going to be accountable and pull back the layers and do the work every day. And I
yeah,
and that's why this book has become so popular and it's helped so many people because you've actually given them the step by step, write that beautiful letter to yourself, read it, remember who you are, love yourself, love yourself, because if you can't love yourself and you don't know how to take care of yourself, how can you even see it in another person? So I really honor that journey of at that deep honesty that you had to have with yourself in order to
yeah.
actually get what you really wanted.
Yeah, that definitely, there was a saying in AA that's one of my favorite sayings. It says you can save your You can't save your face and your ass at the same time.
Oh, I have not heard that one before. That's great. I love
Okay.
that.
You
Wow.
really have to just get very real with yourself and
Yeah.
just allow yourself to be a little humble
Yeah.
and stop being right and be willing to be the one who's responsible. But here's the thing, you said something before that I just want to point out before we end, because I know we're nearing our time.
Yeah, sure.
But you said something before about this question, like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that we don't take personal responsibility is because the moment we go to ask ourselves, how am I the source of this pattern? We go right to our psychology. My mother did this, my father did that. Now I only date narcissists or men who don't show up for me or whatever it is. I'm repeating the pattern. Then we get very victimized by our consciousness. And
Yep.
it really is this, what's wrong with me conversation. If you allow yourself to go into what's wrong with me, you will get stuck there.
Yep.
There's no growth in shame. Shame stunts development. So learning how to ask yourself questions that foster development and growth is key when you're
Hmm.
looking. So when you say, you almost have to have like an objective, first of all, it has to be unconditional respect and self-love.
Yes.
The bottom line of being able to
Yep.
reflect accurately. You just have to decide that you're a human being and that you've done your best and that there are parts of you that are conflicted and it's all okay and understandable. From there, you might say, how am I the source of this? Well, one of the ways, I'll give an example how I was the source of something is that I really had a thing around married men, and I tried so hard to not have it be that way. It was just like I was a magnet for them. It was just uncanny. I wouldn't even know they were married. It was just ridiculous. And somehow available men never even approached me. So the men who just kind of, ran across the room to talk to me were always
Yeah.
engaged
Big,
men.
big sign, come to me.
So it was so frustrating, right?
Yeah.
But when I looked and said, well, how am I the source of that? I really, because I did get involved with some of them, right? Because there
Yeah.
was so much chemistry. There was just so much in common that we had. It was just felt like destiny. It felt like, and then you get all into the hope that he's going to leave her and all that kind of drama. But what I saw was when I met somebody, because my father was not there for me or whatever set up I had in my early youth, I had really become become kind of used to being on my own. And it didn't even occur to me that when you're looking to get involved with somebody, that there should be an expectation that you're looking for someone who can really show up for you and be there for you.
Yeah.
Right? So that was off my radar.
Yep.
But
You didn't know any difference.
I
Yeah.
didn't even know. But seeing that clearly gave me an opportunity then to say, I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to start doing that. So I changed my dating criteria. It wasn't so much about, is he sophisticated and is he handsome and does he work out? It was more about, is he available? Is he kind? Does he have good character? Is he stable? Is he fiscally responsible? And is he interesting? How do I feel with him? Do I feel safe
Yeah.
with this person? Do I want to get into his world? It was a different criteria than the other criteria. So this inquiry into how am I the source is never about making yourself wrong. And when you see something that you just never learned, you don't just then go back into the past about why you didn't learn it. You get busy learning it.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
right.
That's the healing, because that's sadly what happens often is people look and they stay in the story of what happened and the victimization. It's okay to go, this is what happened, and now how to move forward, how to do that healing. How do I feel open and available and honoring who I am, different than what I was taught as a kid or whatever the scenario is. Yeah, we need to move from the shame. We need to move from the trauma. And we all have something, and your book and your work shows that healing is possible. We can heal. We just have to do
Well, but we
do the
can
work.
transform.
Yeah.
Healing might be a lifelong process.
Totally. Thank you for that
Okay.
discernment. Yes,
We can
absolutely, because
transform
it's
it, and we
layers.
don't need to heal everything before we can have what we desire. I think
And
that's so.
let's underline that. You don't have to be perfect to get what you want. It is a journey. I'm not at the top of the mountain. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. My partner and I, we laugh all the time about, yep, there it was. How can we keep going? So I love that. I love that. The transformation, the moving while we heal,
Yeah.
while we open to love and attract love. All right, sister, what's one thing you really want this person that's listening, watching to hear from you? What's one takeaway that you hope they got from this segment today?
To the future that you're committed to creating more than you're looking to your past to figure out why you are the way you are. Okay, what's the future you want to create? And ask yourself, how will I need to grow? What will I need to give up? What's my next step?
Yeah, yeah. And your book, Calling in the One, guides
Yes.
you through this process of letting go, of claiming, of opening, of healing. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yes, look to the future. I love that. So you have a wonderful gift for this listener watcher. Would you like to
Ooh,
share a little bit about your workshop?
yes, I have a 60-minute calling in the one free digital workshop called Liberated to Love and Be Loved, How to Stop Settling and Start Attracting a Happy, Healthy, Wholehearted Relationship. And it's right on actually callingintheone.com. If you want to go there, it's right in the banner there. It says learn more. And or we also, are you able to give people links right
Oh
to?
yeah, we're gonna have a link to your book, link
Okay,
to your
good.
website. It'll
Okay,
all be below in the show notes. You definitely can grab it there. And yeah, we'll have everything there for
okay,
us.
it's going to really take you through the very
Love
simple
that.
shift that you can make to create absolute magic in your love life and outgrow painful.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So deep, deep bow to you, sister. Thank you for all that you've brought into the world and have helped so many, including myself. It has been such an honor to spend some time with you. Wise, wise words.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. That's our episode. If you got some value from this, I'm sure you did. I'm sure you took some notes and are thinking about some things now. I invite you to share it with a friend, share it with somebody who might be struggling with a relationship or stuck in some way in the patterns, or maybe just don't know what's next for them. Be that accountability buddy, support your friends, and love them up by sharing this video. And do subscribe because that's how we reach more people. And we have some more amazing episodes coming. So until we meet again, mwah. One more thing before you go. Have you taken my Discover Your Love Avatar quiz? It's a 2-minute quiz that can help you not only know your strengths, your superpower because you have one, also identify some of your blind spots, some of the things that might be having you in your fear, having you behaving in ways that aren't in alignment with your highest self, the way you want to be when it comes to dating and relationships. And it'll also help you discover why maybe the stars haven't lined up for you yet. Bottom line is, you take this 2-minute quiz, you get a full report in your email with details on how to move forward in next level love, whether you want a partner or not. So you can go to midlifeloveoutloud.com/love quiz. The link is in the show notes as well. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to the station, I'm going to encourage you to do that too, so you don't miss any episodes. And I hope you got a ton out of today's. See you next week. Mwah.